I'm Andrea Darlas, interviewing some of the cast members from Robert Allen's new film, Honest to God. With me here is Burke Sage, who plays the lead character, Daniel or Danny Adams. Burke, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Tell us a little bit about your character, about Daniel Adams, and you weren't originally the actor who was going to play Danny Adams.
No, I was not. I had not worked with Robert before. I had auditioned for one of his previous films just to make a connection. I'm from Michigan, so I hadn't kind of gotten my feet wet in the Chicago market. And auditioned for a different film, didn't get the role, but we made at least some sort of connection. Auditioned for this film for a very small role, Pastor Nick. And was, landed the role, which is great. I thought that was my open door.
Sure.
And then some things changed over the last year. COVID hit, and a lot of things changed casting-wise. We lost some people. And the long and short of it is the lead actor was unable to stay committed to the film. And kind of out of the blue, I got a call from Robert and just said, hey, I want to kind of throw something your way. And so we've had multiple conversations and multiple Zoom type of interviews and read-throughs of the script, and he offered me the lead role. So I went from the smallest role just about in the film to the primary role.
To the lead role.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing.
What's going through your mind when you get that phone call, thinking, all right, I'm going to be not only, a bigger role, but the lead role in the film?
That was kind of a big weight, to put on your shoulders. To have somebody entrust you with the main role of a film, and you've never worked with them before. It's kind of like I'm taking on this unproven, testing a horse, a farmer or something. But I'm really grateful, and I think it worked well. So I'm very thankful that he gave me that chance.
I think we all are. It's your character's. He's a great character. He's very complex because you start off not really liking Daniel Adams. He's not the most kind or compassionate person. No.
He's a little, maybe a lot, self-centered. He has his own little world that he lives in. Loves his family.
Sure.
He's a good man. I think at the core he's a good guy.
Yeah.
But he's all business, and if things don't work out to his benefit, he kind of keeps it at arm's length. So not always the nicest.
Yeah. And your wife, you learn early on that your wife encourages you to read the Bible and try to find God and be a better Christian.
Sure. Yeah. And I think Daniel, to a point, kept that relationship at arm's length as well. Part of me thinks that he felt like my wife's got this, so kind of by association, I'm rolled into that. I'm okay with God type of a thing.
Right.
And so I think he had his faith vicariously through his wife to a certain extent. So he kind of teases her about it a little bit. So
right.
He's not totally on board with it.
Yep. Now, as an actor, so this particular role, you've been in Christian theater before, so that you weren't a stranger to playing.
Right. Oh, yeah. Gosh, about 6 years ago, I went through a program. It was called AMTC, Actors, Models, Talent for Christ, and it was a faith-based kind of a training program where they brought you through and talked to you about the industry and the ups and downs and pitfalls, and helped you with headshots and just really got you prepped for the industry.
Right.
And so going out of that, I wanted to try to find projects that were going to be family-friendly or faith-based, and this is, I think, a perfect fit. For me, having come from where I am and knowing kind of what Robert was intending for the film.
Yeah. I also want to talk to you. I want to go back to a little bit about the complexity of your character, going from making a kind of a change in his life for the better, but then not so good, but then kind of coming full circle. Did you feel he kind of came full circle?
He did. He rode the roller coaster, I think, that a lot of us, ride on. Whenever you're faced with a challenge or, something that might cause pain in your life or whatever, by default, we want to avoid it. What can I do to not have this happen or not be painful? And his default way of handling that was to turn everything into a business deal.
Right. Yes.
He was a great businessman. He knew how to work the system, and he kind of turned this into I'm going to handle this the business way, and that's kind of the way he carried it out. But it took some other things to kind of wake him up to see that he really needed to go a little bit deeper with how he was handling things. So,
do you think a lot of people can relate to this character too? Just especially if you get news that maybe isn't happy news or satisfactory to your life, that a lot of people could maybe fall into that.
Oh, I would say so. I think anybody, once they find out some of the struggles that Daniel faces, I think everybody is going to by default just connect with that.
Yeah.
Oh man, I wouldn't want to go through that, either. But I think we all do that. I think we all have that time where we want to escape or want to kind of negotiate, or what do I have to do to get out of it? So I think everybody's had that at some point in their life.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And there's a lot of different facets of religion brought into this too. There's Christianity. There's Mormonism. There's a lot of different facets, but kind of with the same message.
Yeah, and it's interesting, just his path, even though it was on a path to God, he had different influences that kind of kept him bouncing down that path. Right. Some of them were comical, some of them were very serious, but I think that's, from my own personal experience, God uses a lot of things that we wouldn't consider the right Christian way of doing things that get used to help us down the path to where we're supposed to be going.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I think, and maybe you would agree with this too as an actor, and in this particular role, that all of this kind of, whether it's humor or anger or all the emotions that your character experiences, it kind of builds us and makes us, who we are.
Sure. Oh, you better believe it. Yeah, you better believe it. And all of those things come into play. It's not always happy. It's not always sad. It's kind of that, like a chef.
Yeah, right.
Puts all his ingredients together, and the finished product is, where it's headed. So,
Burke, what do you want people who see this film to take away? What do you want to be the takeaway from your character and from the film overall?
For people to slow down a little bit and see the value in relationships they have around it, because my character, like I say, he was a little shallow in certain things.
Right.
And I don't want to have people have to experience pain in their life to realize how important other people are, in their world. That there are other things that are more important, than work or whatever. The saying, when you're on your deathbed, you don't want to say, boy, I wish I did one more project or worked a few more hours. You want to spend time with your family. So hopefully that it kind of reinforces that fact that there's some more important things.
And he is, for the faults that he is a best friend to a character who has some mental insecurities and issues, of course, too.
Yeah. And with Daniel, he's always stayed connected to him. In fact, I have had some friends that I knew when I was younger, and your paths kind of, they go a little bit different ways, but you still stay in contact.
Sure.
They don't necessarily share all these things in common, but I think that relationship really shows that Daniel still at his core cares about people, but it's just kind of underneath some other things.
Right.
So I think that's a really neat relationship.
I do too. It's a complex relationship, but it's a dynamic relationship between those two characters. Let's talk about your relationship. You have, I believe, the only scenes with Larry Thomas, with the soup Nazi. What were those scenes like? I mean, just watching, it's very comical.
It was. And honestly, I was going into it, I was a little intimidated, because I grew up, watching a lot of these sitcoms, and he was, on a show that I loved, and everybody knew No Soup for You.
Right.
And so coming into it, it was a little intimidating, how it was going to work out. But I mean, immediately, as soon as we got on set, after the first handshake, I mean, he's so down to earth, was such a great guy.
Yeah.
Had lots of fun conversations, while we were waiting to shoot, and he just shared all kinds of fun stories.
It's cool because the scenes that you have with him are very funny, but they're very serious too. I mean, so you're both taking on different personas and different emotions when you're filming these.
Right. Yeah. I mean, those scenes kind of encapsulated the highs and the lows all in the same scene.
Yeah.
You had the real comical pieces of it, but it was with that cover of, boy, this is really not good news either.
Yes.
And so that was a lot of fun though. So.
Kind of give us a look behind the curtain too, in between takes. I'm sure obviously everybody's setting up and lights and directing and whatnot, but you two, it's just you guys basically in the room probably chit-chatting with each
just
other.
a lot of great stories, and we just had fun. I learned a lot about him and kind of what makes him tick, and we had a good time.
So will there be a Seinfeld reunion? Are we allowed to ask that?
I haven't heard anything. I don't know. There won't be any soup though.
Right, I bet. Burke, talk about, I know this was your first time working with Robert. You had auditioned to be with him, be in one of his earlier films, but then you get the call, and then immediately going from a minor role to the lead role. What was it like working with Robert?
Working with different directors, everybody's got their different approach, of how they do things, and so it was fun getting to know Robert and talking with him on the phone, before shoots, and just talking through the part, talking through the characters, and honestly, I've had a ton of fun with him. It was a real joy being on set. I mean, the relationships and the interactions between Robert and the other cast and crew, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. You know, bigger sets, you don't get the connection, I don't think, as much because you have so many people doing so many different things. You don't have that connection a lot of times.
Right.
But with this, we were pretty scaled back, just given the circumstances. And so Robert wore a lot of hats. He's a hat man.
Yeah.
You noticed that.
And I saw you displaying a couple hats, different your character wore a couple of different hats literally throughout the film.
That's exactly right.
From the baseball cap to the fedora to the...
Well, some of this was kind of after Robert himself, who's a hat wearer, and so Daniel needed to also kind of, and we share the same haircut.
Yeah.
So
it looked great.
It
I
worked.
loved it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, final question for you, Burke. If you were told you had 3 weeks to live, what would you do?
Oh boy, I would probably stop working if I knew it was that short of a time, but I would spend it with family. Yeah. You know, like I mentioned earlier, you know, those are the important things, and I would probably spend as much time with my family as I could, and you know, just love on people around me, and make sure I left people's day better than when I was there for the first part. So
it has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Burke. I appreciate it.
That was great. Thanks for having me.